Coming up next on the Wet Fly Swing podcast.
There's, thousands of awesome small organizations that are doing really important work on a smaller level, whether it's in one, state park or a national park or a city park. And so if there's an area you regularly visit and you get a lot out of it, look up the area, the groups that are working to protect it. And, whether it's donating money, donating time, there's so many valuable organizations out there and they're pretty easy to find. So take the time.
That was Peter Murry with a reminder of where you can start to help protect some of your local habitats. The 7 basic principles of leave no trace today on the Wet Fly Swing podcast.
Welcome to the Wet Fly Swing Fly Fishing Show, where you discover tips, tricks, and tools from the leading names in fly fishing today.
Hey, how you doing today? Thanks for stopping by the show. Today's episode is sponsored by BearVault, who has the perfect solution to keep your provisions secure while heading into the backcountry. BearVault builds a rugged polycarbonate locking canister that keeps bears and other wild critters out of your food. You can check out BearVault right now, wetflyswing.com/BearVault. That's BearVault. And you support this podcast by clicking over to BearVault. Big reminder, we are launching a giveaway all week here. This is the Steelhead School giveaway. If you want to go on a trip with Jeff Liskay, one of the great steelhead anglers and teachers in the country, this is the one for you. We're heading out to Steelhead Alley out of the Great Lakes. I'm going to be there along with Jeff and the crew. So you can join this giveaway right now, wetflyswing.com/giveaway. And that's the best way to join today. Peter Murry and Gary Huey are here from Leave No Trace. We discover what they have going on to keep your natural areas clean and diverse, which auto manufacturer is leading the way, and what you can do today, even if you're just at a local park. There's all sorts of stuff we talk about today. This is a great intro episode. So without further ado, here we go. Gary Huey and Peter Murry from leavenotrace.org. How's it going, guys?
It's going great over here.
Yeah. Good here as well.
Nice. Well, we don't always do the 3-person episode, so let's start off. Peter, let's start off with you. Where are you from right now? Where are you calling from?
Yeah, I'm calling from sunny Louisville, Colorado. So it's about 15 minutes outside of Boulder, which is where we are headquartered.
Oh, there you go. All right, that's right. And then Gary, where are you at?
Yeah, I'm calling in from California, the Bay Area right now.
Oh, so. Good. All right, there we go. So yeah, Gary, why don't you start us off? We're, I like to get a little background on all of our guests before we jump into Leave No Trace and all the good stuff you guys have going there. So, and I'm not totally sure on your background. I'm not sure if you do any kind of, or maybe just tell us, what is your outdoor sport? If you had to pick one thing, what's that thing you're doing like this weekend?
Yeah, that's hard. It's right now it's really hot in California, or I would say I'm a big backpacker. Most recently got into fishing as well. But I really enjoy getting out deep in the backcountry as well. So
there you go. So just long extent. I mean, what is for you? Are you like long trips, or is it like the day hike stuff more your style?
I like the 3 to 4 days is a good amount of time in the backcountry for me. Yeah, you have enough time to get as deep as you want, but not too long to where you have to pack too much.
Right. Yeah, you can stay light. Nice. So I hope to. We're definitely going to talk a little backpacking today, and we'll dig into that a little bit. And then on the Leave No Trace, give us a short snippet on how that came to be for you.
Yeah, for myself, my first backpacking trip is when I was first introduced to Leave No Trace. I was kind of a part of a study away program to where we went backpacking, and they introduced and taught us Leave No Trace before we went out, which looking back on that was a really, good thing to teach a bunch of first-time backpackers before you went out. And so that's where I first heard of it. And then later to work for the organization and see everything that they've been doing is the growth and continual progress of my experience with Leave No Trace.
Mm-hmm.
Nice. And how about you, Peter? Give us your background story. I know you have some fishing, so talk about with our guests. We like to hear the fly fishing, how that came to be first, and then talk about Leave No Trace.
Yeah, totally. So guess I kind of answered the original question. For me, my favorite outdoor activity is kind of dependent on the season. So if there's snow on the ground, it's split boarding. If there's not snow on the ground, even if there is snow on the ground, oftentimes fly fishing. And so I grew up in the upper Midwest where being outside and fishing is kind of part of the lifestyle. And so ever since I can remember, fishing was always my favorite thing to do. As like a 3-year-old, all my Christmas and birthday presents were something to do with fishing. But that was more kind of the classic, rod and reel spinner type fishing on the upper Mississippi, which, an awesome way to get outside, an awesome way to, kind of experience the joys and the, sometimes discouraging days of fishing. But then I was fortunate enough to go to school up in the Driftless region, which for anyone who's not familiar is a hidden gem in Iowa, Minnesota, and Wisconsin, where there's just phenomenal fly fishing, mountain biking, climbing, all those typical activities associated with the West. And so pretty quickly hopped on the small stream, trout fishing. Originally started with a rod and reel and, some spinners, and then was fortunate enough to actually take a college credit course where I learned how to tie flies and learned how to go fly fishing. And so to get an A in the class, all I had to do was catch one fly with one fish with one fly I tied. So it was definitely the best college course I ever took.
There you go.
So that was kind of my introduction, and kind of since then, the class sort of, being obsessed. So
do you remember the professor, or who was the teacher in that class? I wonder if was this in Colorado?
No, in Decorah, Iowa.
Oh, in Iowa. Oh, wow, nice.
Yeah, up in the Driftless. So yeah.
Cool. Yeah, we've got a Driftless episode coming out tomorrow on our Thursday episode, so it's all Driftless and Euro nymphing. So you can check that one out.
Nice.
Right on. So then how did you get into the Leave No Trace?
Yeah. So just being someone who was outside all the time as a kid, there's always kind of that association between, where I was and what I was getting out of that space, and kind of how finite that resource is. And so, the concept of leave no trace, pack it in, pack it out, leave it better than you found it was always at the forefront, and didn't, have a real introduction to the organization until, similar to Gary, I was on I studied abroad in South Africa for a year, and was part of a mountain club there, in which, the actual very ingrained Leave No Trace organization, 7 Principles, was very at the forefront of all of our activities. And so that was where I had my first true introduction to the organization. But the framework of thought, I think, is, there for lots of people before they necessarily knew that there is, a group behind it all.
That's right. Yeah. It's become kind of, you've got the Leave No Trace, and we're going to dig into a little bit of history there, but it's just bigger. It's become just Leave No Trace is not, I don't even know, probably people don't even apply it necessarily to your, what you guys do there necessarily, right? Has it become this broader thing now where it's encompassing, it's just a name, everybody knows what it is? Do you guys find that, or does anybody not know what it is these days?
I think that most people that we talk to have the concept of leaving no trace without the association and the nonprofit, first and foremost. And then you do get those people you interact with who are super fans of the Leave No Trace, the organization as well, and know all the work that we're consistently doing. But yeah, I'd say people most often know Leave No Trace.
Gotcha. So most people. And what is and I want to dig into some of the work you guys are doing as well. But maybe we can just start. The principles, that seems like probably the most general thing we could talk about to help somebody who maybe doesn't know, because I think that, you can imagine the person's out there hiking or fishing or outdoors, and they're, they have a banana, right? And they have this peel, and they just throw it off into the bushes, and it just seems, and it disappears, right? It's like gone. That's, what some people probably think. Talk about that a little bit. Like, what is that something, those types of things, or how much of an impact is that? Let's first start with the principles and then talk about some of the examples of things people maybe do that don't realize is impacting the environment.
Totally. Yeah, I can start with that one. So I'll start with the 7 principles. are really more of a framework than necessarily a direct, kind of direct guideline of this is exactly what you have to do. Because we fully recognize that every outdoor, experience is unique. And because of that, your approach to how to preserve that space, whether it's, mountain biking in the, Sierras or fishing in the upper Midwest. And so the 7 principles are meant to be adaptable and kind of flexible depending on what you're doing. But I'd say overall, they're meant to just kind of spur that internal conversation so that you're thinking about what you're doing and how it's impacting the outdoors. And so obviously there's a lot of really great specific examples for specific activities that you can check out on our website, lnt.org. But the general framework behind it is just starting that conversation so that, you're looking where you're stepping, you're picking up that apple core, you're packing at your trash, not feeding animals, so yeah, that's kind of the way I look at the 7 principles. And I'm, everyone has their own kind of interaction with it, but I think just that general guideline of being aware and being present is really what we strive for when kind of applying that to your outdoor spaces.
Okay, perfect. And what are the, just for somebody that's totally, is new to this, what are the 7 principles?
Yeah. So principle 1, we got plan ahead and prepare. That is, kind of the overarching principle. Gary likes to say it's the principle of all principles, in that before you're out on the trail, before you're doing anything, you're doing research on that area. You're, looking at stuff that the land managers are putting out. You're assessing areas of special concern. Making plans for if it's going to rain. Are you going to be packing, waterproof shells? If it's going to be cold, are you packing extra layers? And just kind of starting that discussion before you're even on the trail. And so principle 2 is travel and camp on durable surfaces. That's pretty self-explanatory. Again, it's kind of dependent on where you are, what is a durable surface, and how to move through those areas. But, again, check your local area. Principle 3, dispose of waste properly. So a lot of this has to do with human waste. And so knowing where you're at, knowing types of regulations that are in place there, whether it's digging a cat hole, using a wag bag, but making sure that you're informed on what the land managers want you to do for disposing of waste. And then obviously, when it comes to trash and other forms of waste, when in doubt, pack it out. Principle 4 is leave what you find. So if you're on a high mountain alpine area and you're admiring the wildflowers, leave it there for the next person to enjoy instead of picking a bouquet and taking it home. Principle 5, minimize campfire impacts. Again, pretty self-explanatory. I'd say the one on this is to really, really, really do your research. Make sure that if you are doing a campfire, you're not in an area that's at high fire risk. There's not fire bans in place. But so yeah, doing your research on this one's a big one. And then principle 6 is respect wildlife. I don't know if you're familiar with the rule of thumb, but essentially it's putting your hand out straight with your thumb up, and if your thumb covers the animal completely, you're at a safe distance. If not,
it's a good
if
one.
that grizzly bear is wrapping around the thumb, you might want to back up a little bit. And principle 7 is just be considerate of others. Recognize that everyone has the right to be in the outdoors. Everyone has the right to experience it in their unique ways, and it's your responsibility as someone who's out there to be open and to be excited to introduce all different people and all different activities into that space.
Nice. Yeah. And those are all, fairly straightforward and kind of standard. A lot of it's almost stuff that you would just expect, almost in your daily life, right? There's a couple things there like camping on durable surfaces that maybe that makes sense to me as well. So this is not rocket science what you guys do or what you talked about here at the principles. How do you guys apply this now with some of the stuff you do out there, some of the programs and things you have ongoing with Leave No Trace?
Yeah, well, my role within Leave No Trace is a Subaru Leave No Trace traveling team. And so a lot of my work is traveling around the country to different events, different land managers, national parks, state parks, to talk to the general public, talk to land managers about leaving no trace, and just educate, give free education to people about these 7 principles. Because although we may think that these can be, self-explanatory or everyone should know this, it'd be surprising on how many people find a lot of these things surprising, which is good information for people to know, especially with the increase of outdoor recreation nowadays. And so,
That's a good point. That's a good point. So somebody comes out of the, is in Chicago and has never been out of the city, and all of a sudden they're like, oh, this outdoor thing is cool. And then they're outdoors and then they have no idea about any of this stuff. They're like, oh, yeah, where do I go to the bathroom? I guess, and you see that everywhere. I mean, that's the thing that sucks is, right, you still see it on the rivers. We do a lot of river trips, and I mean, man, the amount of toilet paper you see out there flying around, it's like unbelievable, and it's, it's almost, it feels like it's a slow process. Do you guys find the poop thing is one of the biggest problems out there still?
Poop is definitely a big problem, especially in the backcountry areas. We've been talking to a lot of land managers, hearing about, with just the increase of people, maybe if a few people weren't bearing it back a few years ago, that few people is now exemplified to many people aren't doing that. And so we find that to be a problem across the board, but still teaching about how to bury your waste, or now moving into the area of packing out your waste is always a good idea as well, because of how many cat holes will be out there now.
Right. And what's the recommend? I mean, there's different ways to do it, but what do you guys recommend? The packing out is the wag bags. Is that the most common thing people are doing in the hiking out there?
Yeah, I'd say it again depends on where you're at. Different ecosystems have different abilities to process human waste. And so if you're on a backpacking trip down in Arizona in the desert, we would 100% recommend every single time you're there that you're packing out that waste, because without those microbes in the soil to break down the human poop, it's going to be there for much longer than if you're say up in northern Wisconsin, where there's lots of microbial activity in the soil and lots of moisture to help break that down. So I think when in doubt with the increasing amount of users, use a wag bag, but recognize that what you do in the Pacific Northwest is not necessarily what you're going to do in the Southwest.
Yeah, it's going to be different. And and we've talked, the wag bags come up a few times on this, and just for those maybe that don't know, what is is that something you just could Google up and there'll be a bunch of different products, or is there a specific type company or something like that of what you need to get?
There's a bunch of different companies, but WAG stands for waste alleviation and gelling. And so a lot of these bags that you can poop in, they'll come up. There's like Restop, there's the WAG bag, there's a bunch of different brands, but that's kind of the concept of the item. Yeah.
Okay, good. I'll put some links in the show notes for some of the stuff we're talking about here, just so people, because again, I think there are going to be folks out there listening that maybe haven't, had to use those yet, and it'll be good to have a little resource. So, so this is good. I think we've got a good start on this, and so far I'm not, super surprised. It feels like I'm doing okay, but let's go back real quick on the history, because we've had a number of founder stories that have been pretty cool on this podcast. Can you give us, just the background? How did it get started? How did leavenotrace.org, or I guess LNT.org start?
Yeah. So kind of a unique starting story. Leave No Trace as a concept has been around for quite some time. It was essentially, it was originally a kind of guideline for how to recreate when in the backcountry that was developed by National Park Service and a bunch of other kind of land managers in the 60s. And then since then has really kind of adapted and adjusted. And then in 1994, the actual 501c3 nonprofit that we work for was founded, and have seen a huge amount of growth if you look at, what was recommended in the 60s versus what is recommended now. But yeah, it originally developed by land managers and adapted into a kind of full-blown conservation-minded organization in '94.
Gotcha. So it was probably a group of land managers that came together and said, hey, we need to have a nonprofit that kind of helps guide things into the future. Is that kind of, it wasn't necessarily like one person that came in '94 and was like, hey, let's start this thing. It was more of a group effort.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
All right, perfect. Well, let's go back to a couple of examples. We, just again, some of the things maybe people aren't thinking about that maybe they're doing, or, and I mentioned that banana example, talk about that. Why, and obviously this changes depending on where you're at, but why tossing food, apple cores, little stuff like that, if you're in a thick wooded forest, where it disappears in the shrubs, why would that be a bad thing?
Yeah, you'd be surprised on, depending on the environment, how long some of these items take to break down. So often orange peels and banana peels, they can take up to 2 years to decompose. And within that time, it could disrupt wildlife, the cumulative impact of if all of us threw an orange peel or an apple core one time, so many of us going outside, there'd be built up accumulation. So maybe the social aspect of seeing all this food waste on the ground would be displeasing. But those are some of the reasons why for that, look to pack it out.
Yeah, pack it out. And I always think of we've talked a lot about the bears recently. And I think that's one thing, just food in general, right? I mean, people, sometimes you don't realize that bears are a good example of an animal that can be, had to put down if it starts getting used to eating human food, right? Not to mention having a bear in your camp is never a good thing. Do you guys think is bears one of those animals out there that comes up a lot, hot topic, or are there other animals out there?
Yeah, no, I mean, bear are obviously a popular point of conversation when talking about kind of human interaction with animals. We all know that the slogan, a fed bear is a dead bear. But I think it's important to recognize that, there is a chain within this ecosystem. And so even if you're not leaving, a whole burger in camp, if you're leaving crumbs on the ground, that's attracting, squirrels and small animals, which then attract larger animals, And so it's important to not feed the cute chipmunk, because there's 15 different lines that will get you to that bear. And so animal interaction, even if it's not feeding a grizzly bear, will have pretty detrimental effects on that ecosystem.
Yeah, it's the whole ecosystem. That's what you guys are probably always thinking about. It's not just like a bear or a animal. It's really you guys are always thinking about the whole thing. How's everything interacting? I mean, how is that with you guys on the the science end? You might not have a great example for all these, but do you guys back this up? What sort of research are folks doing a lot of this type of research, or is this coming more from the land managers where you're making your decisions on kind of what topics to tackle next, that sort of thing?
Yeah, all of our education that you see, whether it's 7 principles or specific guidelines for the Rocky Mountain, they're created through a very rigorous process of research. And so any education that we put on is not just like a thought about it one day, that sounds good, and we published it. It's education that was maybe created in-house or created by the National Park Service. And so we essentially have an organization, a committee with representatives from the 5 major national land managers, as well as university professors who do research on the human interaction in the outdoors. And so anything that we put out is vetted through that very rigorous process. And so if we're saying this is what we recommend on, bear canisters in Nevada, it's been vetted. It's been put through the ringer of pretty much every influential organization that is out there on the ground managing these areas.
Right. So it's been through the ringer, and you've got scientists on staff, people and land managers. And then, so if something comes out, and that's a good example, like the bear stuff, I think some of that's being required now, right? The actual hard-sided bear canisters versus hanging in the tree. We had a conversation, we talked on a recent episode with BearVault, and they said, the hanging of the trees isn't really, I'm not sure if that's gone fully where, in all national parks, you have to have a hard canister, but that's probably a good example, right, of where some research came in and said, hey, this isn't really working just hanging in a tree. Do you guys know much about that topic?
Yeah. So most often we recommend people to have a bear canister. We did talk with the BearVault as well and heard about all the bear hangs, especially. I think it really goes back to how many people are going outside. It used to be, maybe a few people in the backcountry in a certain area per year, and now it's, thousands and thousands of people. And so the idea of everybody hanging their food and gear on trees can add up that impact on the trees. And so it is a good idea now to, have your bear canisters. And again, it does depend on where you are in the local regulations, but more and more we see bear canisters becoming a requirement though.
Mm-hmm.
This episode is sponsored by BearVault, assuring your next backcountry trip stays memorable, epic, and safe. BearVault builds a rugged polycarbonate locking canister that keeps bears and other wild animals out of your stuff. This definitely keeps you safe and keeps the bears safe while out in the woods. We've heard all those bear stories over the years about them ripping into your gear, your cooler, your boats, whatever. There's all sorts of ways to do it wrong, but BearVault will make sure you don't have to worry about that on your next trip here. Believe it or not, food storage is a key consideration when in the backcountry. The BearVault has a couple of great bonus features, including it acts as a stool. That's always handy. It's got a large, wide opening mouth, so you can grab all your gear, and it's easily accessible. You can see everything through the clear canister. Be the guy who has the epic trip, not the guy who has to hike out early because of improper food storage. BearVault will keep you rolling. Check them out right now. That's wetflyswing.com/BearVault. That's BearVault to check them out right now. Okay, back to the show. And you guys are both in, you think about the two places, Colorado and California, right? Definitely you hear about some bear encounters in both of those places, right? There's probably, there's hot spots around the country. Is that how you guys see it? Are you guys in two of the really hot spots for bear encounters?
Yeah, I do a lot of work and love to go to Yosemite out here. And so there's a lot of bears out here. And so I personally, when I was in Washington, I've seen a bear on the dock when I was backcountry camping on a lake. But other than that, I haven't seen any in California, though I hear there's a bunch, and I know for a fact there's a bunch, but I've been pretty fortunate not to have to be too close to some bears.
Yeah, that's good. And Peter, are you the same? Are you near, you probably been down the Rocky Mountain, all that stuff?
Yeah. And I think we have one added benefit for, kind of the relationship with bears, and that we don't have grizzly bears in Colorado. Yeah. That throws a whole different wrench into how you deal with bear if you have a grizzly bear up in Glacier versus a black bear down here. But black bears are getting smarter. They're getting more clever. They're figuring out what we've done to try and prevent them from eating our food, and so it's still an adapting, changing thing down here as well.
Yeah, nice. Well, and we're talking a little bit, some of this is on the hiking end. When you think about that, you're kind of the people that are, I don't know, if you think about your kind of target, the person out there who's really ingrained into the Leave No Trace. Do you guys find that it's a majority hikers, or are there other niches and segments of the country where you're really focusing on that, that maybe aren't focused on hiking?
Yeah, I think originally, obviously, based in hiking, based in backcountry. But a big focus of our organization has really been taking the Leave No Trace ethics that are so prevalent in the backcountry and adapting it for the backyard. And so if you're into the Leave No Trace world, you've been kind of watching what we've been doing. A lot of content that we've been making is for the everyday user, whether it's having a picnic in your local park or going on a quick day hike in a somewhat urban park here in Denver. It is an ethic that's for everyone. It applies to pretty much any interaction you're doing in the outdoors. And I think people have been kind of jumping on board with that. So yes, obviously, the hiking community and the backpacking community is very historically excited about Leave No Trace, and there's huge percentages of people in those groups that identify with us. But increasingly, you're finding Leave No Trace in communities and, people who otherwise wouldn't have seen it because of our efforts to kind of expand that education for all.
Right. So basically, yeah, you guys are targeting pretty much everybody. I mean, if you're outdoors in a natural environment or somewhat natural, then you could apply these principles that we talked about at the start. The 7 principles could apply to anywhere, whether you're in New York, right? In the park there, right? Is that kind of what you're saying?
Yeah, totally.
Good. All right. Well, this has been good. I mean, I think, do you guys feel like I know we've kind of touched on the surface of this, of what it's about, but any other big topics you guys want to hit on, or programs or anything that we, haven't touched on here today?
No, not on this end, unless Peter, you have any.
No, I would just implore people to check us out on social, follow our website. As you said, Dave, this is kind of just scratching the surface on what we do.
Yeah.
We have, numerous boots on the ground programs. We, have much more expansive ways of teaching this than just the typical 7 principles. And so if you're interested, I'd check us out. We have a plethora of resources depending on where you are and what you're into.
Good. Well, and I'm not going to let you guys get out here that easy. We got a few more questions for you, but I did just want to make sure, again, some of this is new to me, so I want to make sure I'm not missing anything big. But it sounds like, so again, if somebody wanted to dig deeper into what we're doing here, or into what you guys have going, maybe even get involved. I mean, are you guys looking for volunteers and that sort of thing as well?
Yeah, always. I feel like we have different programs around the country going on, and we always look for volunteers to participate even on social media when there's not a physical event that they can go to, but always looking to get more of the community involved with Leave No Trace.
Perfect. Well, let's we got this little segment that we have going called Trail Talk. This is a kind of a fun new one, and actually it's an oldie but a goodie. But top tips, tools, and resources, and if you take this to what we're talking about here, Leave No Trace, that sort of thing. And what we're going to do today on this one, this is kind of coming up with this on the fly, but we're going to set up a little deal where we're going to give away, we talked about one of those BearVaults, so we're going to give away a BearVault today. And I think they actually have 2 new sizes, so we'll have to decide on what. Let's ask that to you guys. If somebody's going to give you a BearVault, what size out of the 4? I'm not even sure if you guys know they have the new small one. What would you guys pick?
Yeah, I was fortunate enough to see the new ones at Outdoor Retailer this year, which great addition to the line. I think they now definitely have one that's fit for any outdoor user. I honestly am a pretty minimalist packer, especially when it comes to food. I like doing a lot of dehydrated food, and that BV425, the Sprint, I think would be a great one for those quick little 1-2 day jaunts in the outdoors.
Yep, that's the new small, like the day one, right? The smallest one.
Yeah.
All right, and I'm going to guess, Gary, you're probably knowing the 3 or 4 days. I'm going to guess you're that the one they had, whatever above that size, probably, right?
Yeah, I think that's the 450. But yeah, no, I would definitely go for that medium sized one in the middle of the pack to be able to go for a little bit longer and maybe carry some for other people as well. So
perfect. Well, we'll have a link out at wetflyswing.com/trail talk, and it'll be a good, easy place people can enter this, and we'll give away one of those BearVaults. So let's go on this trail talk. So the tips, tools, and resources. So a couple of tips. Let's just think maybe if you guys want to give us one tip again. So you're out there in the backcountry, somebody's planning a trip. They're out there, something we haven't talked about today. What's a tip to apply that's kind of applies Leave No Trace principles, or just something to think about, a tip in the backcountry?
Yeah, I think one of the biggest tips is when you're planning ahead and preparing for, whatever circumstance may come. I think one thing that some people may not think about is, the group skill level and or expectations of the trip. We may think of the weather, we may think to bring extra clothes and water, but really the social idea of what does everyone want to get out of this experience? How do we fulfill that? Because, everyone may have a different goal within the same trip as well. And so going over that, so everyone has, a positive outcome, positive experience, is a big tip I would give, anyone going outside.
That's awesome. Yeah, that's a great outdoor. Yeah, and you remind me of a trip we did on the Snake River a number of years ago where we had like 7 of us. It was me and a couple buddies I knew pretty well, and then it was a couple of their buddies I didn't know. And it was one of those trips where it turned out fine, but I mean, one of the guys was like, he was wearing his day hikers, and he was like a badass hiker. But then a lot of us had like boots on. We were getting blisters, and it was in Hell's Canyon, or it was in that area, so we ran out of water. And it was just this extreme trip where, like you said, planning, what's the number one principle, right? Prepare. We weren't totally prepared. And that could have gone bad. I mean, it ended up being a fun trip, but that's, and again, the people, right? So if you get around with somebody who maybe is a loose cannon, that might not be a good trip, right?
Yeah. Know who you're going with as well.
Yeah, no, that's the number one thing. All right. So, and Peter, how about you? Give us a tip in the backcountry. What would you throw out there?
Yeah, this might not be leave no trace, but always bring that backpack and 3-weight. There's nothing worse than getting up to an area and wanting to fish it and not having your gear there. So when in doubt, throw it in your pack.
That's right. So, and what do you have there for your pack rod? What's that look like? Is that a 4-piece?
Yeah, 4-piece. I had a Reddington Hydrogen, a nice lightweight. That I recently broke, and so I'm getting a new one. I'm in the market. If anyone has.
Well, I'm going to give you a shout. I'm going to give 2 shout outs here. One to if you haven't heard about this, is a kind of a new product, and actually it's a pretty kind of a weird product, really, to be honest with you. But it's the REYR Gear fly rod. Essentially, it comes in and it packs out in literally seconds. It's a collapsible fly rod, so it's kind of a different take on fly fishing, but it is a pretty cool one. So check that one out if you want something that's super easy. It won't perform, like your 4-piece rod. It's not for, you're not going to get the same performance. But if you want something super quick, that's a good example. So, okay, let's go to. So, we're talking tools now. So give a couple of tools. Backcountry, we can just talk gear. What's your guys's? What's your one piece of gear you're not leaving home without?
That's a good question.
Yeah, it
is. Or maybe it could even be. I always like to throw the. What's it called? Your luxury item, right? What's that luxury item on your backpacking trip?
Mine's probably less interesting, but it is definitely my luxury item because it does weigh a decent amount. That would be, I'm a photographer, and so definitely my camera. I have a mirrorless camera, and so I'm always bringing that no matter what activity or, sport I'm doing. I got to bring the camera and maybe another lens to get a different perspective as well. But that's my luxury item. I know it's definitely mind blowing.
Oh yeah. Now it weighs, especially if you're going ultralight, a camera can weigh a little bit, right? Yeah. With in a separate lens. Nice. All right. That's a good one. And Peter, how about you? Do you got a luxury item there?
Yeah, you got some time to think here. I'd say item I don't leave without, good pair of polarized sunglasses.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah. I recently picked up some of the Costa Fergs and absolutely love them. And,
awesome.
And anytime I forget them, I'm sad. But luxury item, I really like a pillow. So an inflatable pillow. I know a lot of people do like the sweatshirt stuffed into a stuffed sack, and I've been there. But when I got my pillow, I wake up a much nicer person.
That's it. I love that. And now I haven't used inflatable pillows. Are these things that they must just pack up super tiny and all that? It's super light.
Yeah, they do. Big Agnes makes a really, really great one.
Oh, great. I was just going to ask you. Yeah, good name. That's perfect.
Yeah, one of our great partners. So check it out for sure.
Okay. Yeah, this is awesome. I love I love that we're into the gear because I'm like a gear nerd. So, and you mentioned Costa, who's going to be, we're doing a trip here later this fall. So we're going to be working with them as well. They got some good stuff. And they're obviously a good conservation minded company as well. All right. So we got the 2. So we're doing good on the 222. We got 2 more here. And resources. So let's talk, maybe let's focus on the Leave No Trace. You guys have a great resource, obviously, at your website. Who would be a couple other groups, nonprofits, whatever, companies, anything you want that kind of, would be a good place that people can dig into more to learn about these types of conservation efforts?
Yeah, I would really recommend diving in to that local backyard nonprofit. There's, thousands of awesome small organizations that are doing really important work on a smaller level, whether it's in one, state park or a national park or a city park. And so if there's an area you regularly visit and you get a lot out of it, look up the area, the groups that are working to protect it. And, whether it's donating money, donating time, there's so many valuable organizations out there, and they're pretty easy to find. So take the time.
Yeah, that is good. So yeah, it could be like you said, it could be a city park. You could talk to the city, go to a board meeting, find out what they're doing, and maybe do some education, bring you guys in and whatever, right? Help the public learn. That's a good one. All right. So Gary, you got one there? Want to take us away on the 222 here?
Oh, yeah. For another organization, is that the question?
Yeah, maybe another. And I'm just thinking it could be broadly, I think you guys, it sounds like you are the place, right? If you want to learn about these, but are there other groups that you guys work with that are doing similar things out there?
Yeah, I think we're starting to do a lot more work with national forests. And so wherever you are, national forest have a great community of people, and they have a lot of resources, Leave No Trace resources, and resources about, again, like the local area of where to recreate as well. And so definitely check out, like Peter said, the local organizations around, your area, the city park, but also the national forest as well.
Perfect. All right. And a couple more here, you guys, and I'll let you get out of here. I was kind of thinking a little bit on the ends. You mentioned, you mentioned Subaru. So we're talking brands. You mentioned Subaru in the program you have going, Gary. Can you talk about that? Is Subaru? I'm not even familiar. We're actually in the process of buying a new car. So, is that a company that's doing a lot? I mean, you see all the cars, you think they're outdoors, but are they also doing some good stuff for the environment?
Yeah, they're doing a lot of great stuff for the environment. They're one of our biggest partners as well. They have a zero landfill initiative, which is that they're trying to get a few national parks to go zero landfill. So they're diverting a lot of their trash at national parks and trying to just instill that framework and infrastructure for these parks to be able to do that. And my role specifically, they fund and help give us Subarus to go travel around the country to provide this information and education. And so they definitely, we see them contribute to other organizations as well that, try to support the environment as well. But yeah, they do a lot of work and put their money where their mouth is, really.
Mm-hmm.
That's cool. And you mentioned, and I just want to check on this, the outdoor retailer talking gear. I haven't been to that event yet. What was that? What's that like? For somebody who hasn't been there, is that a pretty cool event to attend?
Yeah, no, it totally is. It's, kind of one of those staple gatherings in the outdoor industry. Obviously, for anyone who works in that sphere, trade shows are taking on a different form than 10 years ago. And so OR is no different in that it's evolving. It's changing to meet an industry that maybe is moving a little bit away from these massive, very expensive nationwide retailer conferences, but still a very valuable resource. A lot of really cool groups putting out very innovative and fun gear. And so if you're a gearhead, there's no better place to be, for sure.
It's got everything. So when you look around, it's got hundreds, probably thousands of brands, just kind of anything you need around. And it is kind of hiking focused, or is it just broadly, just like not just hiking? It's got everything.
Yeah, honestly, it's got a little bit of everything. You'll find some fishing groups there. Obviously, it's not as fishing forward as like an IFTD or a iCast or something. Which are also great. But yeah, it's got a little bit of everything. A lot of those kind of general outdoor apparel groups, tents, puffer jackets, all of that stuff that applies to mountain biking and fly fishing. Yeah.
And so one last one here. I was going to ask you guys about your bucket list trip, but I think I'm going to stay on the product line and think about and again, I know I'm putting you guys on the spot, so I appreciate you guys for hanging in here with me and answer these questions. But so come brand wise, Is there a brand? I mean, it sounds like Subaru. We noted one. We recently had Patagonia on and heard that story. Is there another brand? Brands you guys would kind of recommend, or that are out there in the outdoor space hiking that are kind of doing a lot of good stuff? Maybe partners with you guys.
Yeah, I'm happy to take this one. That's the sphere that I kind of work in.
Oh, good.
But a lot of really, really good groups out there that are doing good for our planet. Just to highlight one, Fjallraven, really great corporate partner of ours. They, donate more than just money. They donate time. They donate, a platform, and so they're an awesome organization that really helps us do what we're able to do. And so I implore people out there, if you're buying gear, check out Fjallraven, check out Big Agnes, check out Osprey. Look at where these brands are putting their money and then put your money there. And so if you're into conservation and you're looking for a puffer jacket, see what that organization is doing. See where, a lot of these places are donating, 1% or 10% on product to organizations. And so not only get some cool product, but, put your money somewhere good. That's
great. Yeah. And that's always the challenge, is that for some, you see brands out there and it's hard to say, well, what are they doing, right? To say maybe they have a good product, but how do you know whether they are, contributing? The 1% for the planet, which was kind of the REI, right? Not REI, but Yvonne Chenard, I think, right? Started back in the day. I mean, that's one good way. You could probably go to Patagonia's website as well and see some of the brands there. Is that the tip, to just do your research? How would you find all those brands that maybe are contributing to, some of these good causes?
Yeah, I mean, checking out the 1% for the Planet website is a great way to do it. They have all of their 1% sponsored organizations on there. Also, just taking a little bit of extra time. When you click on the website, most organizations that are doing something will have a sustainability section where they're, describing how they implement sustainability, whether it's in product line or, donating back to, reduce carbon emissions. Just groups that are doing that want to tell you they're doing that and make that part of their identity. And so pretty minimal effort on the consumer side. Check out their website, check out their story. And if they're doing something, I can promise you it's going to be there. So
perfect. All right, you guys. Well, in the next kind of looking out, we're kind of coming into August, September. It's summertime. What do you have, like anything new coming out over the next year that you guys have planning that you can give a heads up on?
Yeah, well, we have some hot spots around the country, which are basically week-long events of, popular areas that people like to recreate in. And we do week-long Leave No Trace activation there.
Oh, nice.
So, yeah, we encourage people to find out where the hotspot locations are and to go participate, look into what people are doing to minimizing their impacts in these areas. But that's a great way to, be able to join an event or see other resources of, what people are doing in all areas and ecosystems of the environment.
Mm-hmm.
Right. That's a good example. Yeah, find an event, local event, go out there, meet some people.
Yeah.
And then, and making a connection, like you said. And it's good to hear you guys have plenty of volunteer opportunities. And if people want to, I guess, donations, right? I'm sure you guys probably accept those as well. Is that just the lnt.org, head there and dig into your website?
Totally. And I would say if you're interested, check out our membership as well, for a yearly or monthly, depending on how you want to set it up. You can join as a Leave No Trace member, which unlocks a plethora of awesome resources, whether it's access to pro deals with some of our corporate partners or, kind of increased education content. Join as a member. We think we do a lot of cool work, and a lot of other people think that as well, but it requires support from organizations and from people. And so if you're stoked on the idea of Leave No Trace and you believe that it should be, implemented as far and as wide as possible, then throw some support our way.
Love it. All right, you guys. Well, we're definitely going to help get the word out here, and hopefully maybe down the line I'll be able to connect with you guys at one of these local events. I'd love to, get some people out there and help the cause. And thanks for all the time today and, the good work you guys are doing.
No, thank you for having us on.
Yeah, thank you very much.
So there you go. wetflyswing.com/363. 363 will get you the show notes and links that we talked about today. We covered a diverse topic and kind of high level. So if you want to check out those 7 principles, hopefully we'll have a nice little infographic that walks through those 7 principles. Reminder at the start, we are launching a super big giveaway right now, wetflyswing.com/giveaway. This is the Steelhead School. This is where Jeff Liskay and I are going to be out in the Great Lakes. We're going to be out in Steelhead Alley, fishing some of the best steelhead rivers and going to be hitting some of the best areas in the Great Lakes at the best time of the year. So if you want to get in on this, wetflyswing.com/giveaway. And we're actually also going to be providing 6 slots, 6 paid slots. So if you want, you can enter that giveaway, but you could also right now just grab a slot if we still have them open. So you can send me an email if you're interested with the subject line Steelhead School, and email that to dave@wetflyswing.com. If you end up winning the giveaway, we will refund you that money for that trip, and you'll get it if you are the winner for the giveaway. So I recommend entering the giveaway as well. And if you're really interested in going out with Jeff and connecting with me at this school, you can do that right now. Okay, we got all sorts of good stuff going on this fall and winter as we move forward, and we're excited to dig into all this. And I'm excited to connect with you. So if you haven't connected with me, send me a message, dave@wetflyswing.com. And I hope I can say this honestly, and right now, I hope to connect with you on this river, on the Steelhead trip, on these amazing Steelhead Alley rivers. But if I don't, I hope to see you online. You can send me a message. And I hope you are having a good morning, a good afternoon, or a good evening, wherever you are in the world. Good evening, wherever you are in the world, or good morning, or good afternoon, all the way around. Looking forward to catching up with you soon. Have a good one.
Thanks for listening to the Wet Fly Swing Fly Fishing Show. For notes and links from this episode, visit wetflyswing.com.